What's up, everybody? Welcome to TeslaFix. Today we have to talk about chopsticks catching a rocket. Of course, I'm talking about the Starship Lounge and especially the catching of the booster. So today I have an obvious guest. We already seen it in the thumbnail, but here's the intro and let's see what he has to say about this topic.
Welcome to TeslaFix. Make sure to subscribe and like this episode.
Brian is here again, finally, after a few videos. The last time we seen each other were on the live stream, of course, of the Tesla Robotaxi event. And now we've witnessed history, I would say. So, Brian, maybe you can really jump in immediately.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. Let's go back just an hour, and I'll tell you my predictions. My predictions are it's going to launch, it's going to turn around, and it's going to abort. And if it doesn't abort, it's going to end in disaster. And it launched, it separated, it turned around. On the ascent, we saw all rockets firing nominally, which is great. And then we see it come down, we see it dogleg, and it just parks. It's done. It's just done. The arms closed, it slowed down as predicted, engines off. And I checked with a lot of the big space streamers. All of them were in similar levels of disbelief because this
is impossible.
It's impossible. It hasn't. Landing a rocket's hard enough, but you want to catch one. And here it looks like it's very close to the tower. There are other shots from other angles. You can see it's nowhere close. It is exactly where it needs to be. And that fire coming out the side at the end there wasn't supposed to be there. It's believed possibly that one of the chines, which is like the piece that sticks down the side, like for a little bit of arrow, one of them may have come detached. One of them may have been damaged, but it's still it didn't
explode.
Yeah. So what does this mean for the future of launches?
Yeah.
What it means is the price is just dropped for massive amounts of payload to orbit. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because this one is super hard. Even the concept before that, they thought they could just land it, but it wasn't possible before. The concepts switched over to catching it with this chopstick kind of device here. And
70 meters tall, not the full stack, just the booster. 70 meters. That's 232 feet tall. It weighs a few kilograms and even more pounds. I
mean, this is really a big rocket. People tend to overlook the size comparison because
look at the size of it. And this is an out-of-date picture because you can tell by the fact that these are drawings. That's saying that Starship was 120 meters, and I think
that's changed
now. No, actually, the one I'm looking at, the Starship itself is 121. So I guess it's about right. Right.
If you think about a human now walking up the Statue of Liberty over here, a tiny one. So you see the scale. This one is a skyscraper flying around, and they catch the kind of a skyscraper in midair, which is absolutely insane. Yeah. What implication does this have? I mean, this one is crucial for the plan, of course, of doing space travel, kind of, because you need many payloads, huge amounts of payload to get up into space to build up bases, for example. The moon base would be a nice addition here. But what do you think will be next because of this? I mean, this is just a test.
So what is next is booster recovery, booster catch and reuse will become routine. This booster 12 did a great job. Will it fly again? Maybe not. They are always iterating. The second stage didn't fare quite as well. It's still, while it was in descent, you could see sparks flying. You could see a couple tiles come off here and there. The sparks started much too early. It was a sign of problems. And they had added more cameras so we could see the flaps, all of the flaps, and we could see some of them started burning through once again. But just like last time, they still performed. And not only did it land where it was expected to land, it was so on target that the buoy camera that they had placed in the middle of the ocean was still correctly pointed right at where it was expected to land. So they can recover a second stage. They just couldn't reuse it, not without an outrageous amount of repair and refurbishment. So what this means is, if you're going one way, like to deliver a Starship to the moon, which could then be left there for use as a habitat, it's done. It's ready. It's flight ready. It's only for landing and reuse that they've got more engineering to do. And I don't know what the obstacles are, but they appear pretty tremendous, because the amount of speed you can see in the bottom right corner on screen right now, the speed over 20,000 kilometers per hour. That is, it has to remove all that speed. It has to scrub that all back down to zero to get back to land. So it is, what is the next step? I mean, there's not a lot of steps missing. Then, of course, we'll have to sort out the in-flight refueling and other smaller issues. And I say smaller, I don't know how big they are, but compared to catching a skyscraper on tiny metal hooks, I think it's reasonably easy. Those little pegs that they're landing on they look tiny. They're actually about 17 centimeters. So they're decent size, but 17 centimeters for two hooks to catch a tower is pretty impressive.
This is crazy if you think about what was happening the days before that. I mean, we had the Robotaxi Lounge, then we have this now. Two very successful things, in my opinion. Seeing the Robotaxi without a steering wheel and without stalks and without anything, any inputs but the touchscreen. Yeah, sure, it needs to have some refinement, but it's more about that this is real and that this is the stage that they are in, and that it will expand in the future. Yeah.
Well, I need stalks in a car. Get rid of the wheel if you must, but I still want a blinker.
Yeah,
no, I'm
exactly.
just kidding. By the way, an interesting point that came up, I said, obviously this is a prototype. It's missing, for example, the windshield wiper. And someone pointed out, why does it need one? You only need to keep the cameras clear. You don't need the whole windshield clear, just a little tiny bit of it at the top. And I thought, oh no, oh baby, you could,
yeah.
I mean, maybe you put a hydrophobic coating on it that allows it to not need a wiper at all. Why do you even have a front window? Just for tradition's sake, I suppose. And because, you want to look out. But
sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. You might not even need a windshield wiper.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But coming back to the Starship Lounge.
Oh yeah, that.
It's heavy. It's very heavy. I mean, this is an engineering marvel, I would say. It still amazes me because it's so fresh. I could watch it over and over again. And I think this is similarly interesting as the two stages of the
Falcon Heavy. Mm-hmm.
This one is also very inspiring. Ignore the strange robots making a moonwalk.
That's a Mechazilla. That's Mechagodzilla, yeah.
Yeah, and here's also a nice post, I think, that highlights this, what was happening, because these two events kind of happened so close to each other. And yeah, it's amazing to see this. Why would you need a heavy rocket sending stuff instead of many small rockets? You said costs, obviously, and I know the answer, but I think.
And I know you're teeing me up, but the answer is right in front of us. Did you know that the International Space Station will be retired in the next 6 years? Do you know how long it took to put that thing up there? It took 20 years. It took billions and billions of dollars. Some say it may be the most expensive civic engineering project, not civic, but, engineering project ever assembled prior to the Large Hadron Collider. If you look at the mass of the space station, you could put it into orbit using Starship in 2 launches.
No way.
Yeah. And you won't. You'll do something different. You will have 10 space stations, perhaps. You will have private companies that will put up their own space station.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
that's
and
true.
Because it's affordable, it's easy now, and when you're not throwing away the first stage and the second stage, your cost to orbit is a little bit of refurbishment, very little, hopefully, almost none, and fuel. And yes, fuel is very expensive because you're using a lot of it. If you watch the thing, you see how huge the volume of fuel they have is. And when you watch it by the 51-second mark, you're like, oh my gosh, they're almost out of fuel. Getting off the ground is the hard part. But the cost of fuel compared to the cost of an entire rocket configuration is almost nothing. So that's one benefit. The other benefit to being able to reuse something like this is with a heavy payload is when you want to deploy a constellation, you can deploy it in 20 launches instead of 1,000 launches, instead of 500 launches. So everything just gets a whole lot easier when manufacturers when companies know that they can put something into orbit cheap, they're more likely to build it. The reason there was such a lag between SpaceX's capabilities and the companies that were able to use them is because they first had to understand that launches had gotten cheap, and then they had to design and build their payloads, which takes time. This demonstration should allow companies to start the engineering to build these larger things that could never before have been launched in one piece.
When you think about the deployments of Starlink now, you could just send one rocket up like this, a heavy one, and just deploy way more Starlings, which already are deployed at a crazy rate if you think about it. When you think about like 10 years ago, this wasn't possible. So now we have it. It just amazes me how fast the technology progresses, and the risk if you want to have it split up in many launches or just one launch. Depends. This rocket obviously could also explode, of course, but like we saw with the satellite that Facebook actually wanted to put up back then. It was still called Facebook, but it sadly exploded, the payload. So
I don't remember Facebook doing one. I know Amazon's Kuiper just got their first test satellites up within the last year, which means without an extension, they're going to lose their permit to use that orbital shell and bandwidth. So yeah, I'm not sure on that one. There's a lot of applications that can benefit from this. I still don't think we're going to see point-to-point transit around the world. That was one thing they'd said, is we can get you anywhere in the world in, 48 minutes or something like that. No matter how near, no matter how far, it's 48 minutes because of the way orbital dynamics works. I guess it'd be ballistic dynamics, but I don't think we'll see that. I think the appetite for that would be insufficient to actually create a system that does that. But it'd be very cheap. Yeah, but it's also the most terrifying thing I can imagine.
Yeah, so I was talking about this, that one SpaceX rocket, the loss of internet.org satellite. So it was back then, a very long time ago.
That's a long time ago, yeah.
Of course, when companies send up stuff for space, it's very expensive, obviously, the payload. But yeah, it makes sense. Now they can deploy way more load, and they can also base stations. Like you said, I didn't even thought about that you could do 2 launches to put the space station we have right now up there is crazy. And also building a moon base probably could now be more of a possibility because of this. And obviously getting us to Mars as humanity is closer. Let's see how long it will take.
Well, we'll talk about Mars. First, I want to say now I understand why Zuck wants to fight him so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but getting to Mars, forget the people. People aren't that heavy in the grand scheme of things. Let's talk about the supplies. You need an absolute warehouse of supplies, and you've got to bring them all with you. And really, you need to send them all in advance. And really, you need to get it all configured and running before you get there. If only someone could make a robot capable of autonomously performing tasks, then you might have, but that's the missing piece. We'll never have that. Humanity does not have the technology to do the robot and pour you a beer and answer your questions using the voice of a Tesla employee. That's weird.
Like you said, I mean, ironically, you've highlighted here the event, of course, and it was interesting also to see the army of Tesla bots walking out there. Even if they were teleoperated in between the sessions, this could be solved by AI, of course. It's just a timing thing that AI picks up the movements of the teleoperator, and if they have a very precise hand, then the hand movement can be very brittle, and like small details could be improved even in the movement, but the movements you could see were very natural. And this thing in the Starship on Mars doing stuff already slightly, and not even that, maybe different form factors of bots over there. It just makes sense to build up something before humans come there, because I assume that it's not so habitable over there. It's a little bit chilly at night and a little bit hot in the day, and difficult to breathe there, I would say. So I think a hub needs to be built, or a dome or something like that, or an underground tunnel system.
At the very least, we need the all the supplies to actually definitely be there. If you're bringing the crew on one ship and the supplies on another, and something happens to that ship, congratulations, you're out of supplies and you're in trouble. But if the supplies are all, we know everything's there and just sitting and waiting for us, let's go. But there still remain a huge number of challenges to getting to Mars. Many of them have not been solved, but today I think one of them has.
Mm-hmm. At least we have a vehicle that might be able to reach Mars. It's just a booster that was catched so far, which is amazing and a big thing. But it's the stepping stone.
I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it. And it looked easy. The first launch of Starship, the first test launch looked hard because it just did not want to get off the stand. And then the second one, you're like, oh, that actually looked easy. This launch looked, again, routine. Once they've done it a time or two, it looks easy. The first time a rocket successfully landed, we were like, oh my gosh, they did it. And then from there out, they didn't have many misses because they got it dialed in. This is rocket science, but it is science nonetheless. It's not art. It's, this is a game of skill, not of chance. And once you get to that level, you've got it sorted out. And I think we're going to see these catches look more and more routine. I think this booster, despite it being the first time, despite it having some off-nominal issues, I think could fly again. Clearly, the top half, the Starship itself, could not fly again. And not just because on touchdown, they went ahead and I think hit the flight termination system to give it a fireworks show at the end, but because it was just too damaged by reentry.
But that one would be the important load, I would say, because if the people come back. So this one needs to be sorted out, of course. But of course. So what is the plan with that? Do you know something that they will catch that too? Is that
will
the
also
idea?
That is my understanding, is that would also be caught. But yes, the problem now is, is it possible to get those flaps to not burn through? Is reentry at those speeds an impossible task? It shouldn't be. The shuttle was able to reenter at those speeds, so you get up to orbital velocity, and you need to get that speed shaved down. But also, shuttle had a much larger surface area. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't larger. I don't know, but it was also very, very heavy. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the plan for the next one is. I do not think we will see a launch by the end of this year. Some had hoped, let's get it done before 2024 ends. I think there's too much engineering and redesign and reconstruction required to better fortify the heat tiles on the Starship to make it happen.
Now they have the catching sorted out for accelerating stuff and bringing stuff to space is now possible, even if they would lose the upper stage kind of after it's deployed. The heavy thing is to get it off the Earth, and then coming back is a problem that needs to be solved because it's very hot and very heavy to catch it. But
if they wish to use it today in an expendable configuration, with just the second half being expendable while recovering the booster, we're there. Surprisingly, shockingly, we're there. Credit where credit's due. Did you watch it on X's stream or someone else's? Because I watched Everyday Astronaut, and then I watched What About It, and then I also watched NASA Spaceflight.
So I watched it on X directly, and I didn't watch the whole thing. I did some runarounds, and then I just read it during walking back home. And then I saw it. I'm like, no! And then I just ran up here and immediately opened up everything and
I had to watch it live.
The last part, like the last special part, I really saw immediately. Kind of.
I set my alarm. I got up early and I watched it live.
Yeah.
I considered streaming it, but I figured this is a little outside my wheelhouse, and
obviously,
if I had more time and wasn't quite as tired, but it'd be fun to just hang out with some of the regulars. But
sure,
I decided against it. Too much work.
My question to the audience now: where have you watched the live stream? Not like me, just the half of it. But Brian watched the Everyday Astronaut, and maybe you can write it down in the comments. You know the deal. It's also about the algorithm, but also I like to hear the discussion down below. What do you think? Will we come to Mars? What's next? Maybe you can also have some questions, or you also have some questions for Brian or me. Write it down. And Brian, of course, we will see each other soon because, of course, we need to talk about the Robotaxi as well and stuff like this. So there's a lot to uncover still. It's going to take weeks until this thing will be out of the news cycle in the Tesla space, I would say. Follow Brian, please, on his channel. So, Brian, thank you very much for being here.